Emma had always considered her marriage with Daniel perfect. People often envied them, how he was a successful professional, and she was an independent, creative woman working from home. Their house was in a peaceful suburban neighborhood, where every morning the sunlight streamed through tall windows, and every evening the streetlights flickered on in a comforting routine. For the first few years of their marriage, life was simple and beautiful. They traveled together, shared dreams over coffee on Sunday mornings, and celebrated even the smallest victories with joy. Emma always admired Daniel's ambition, his charm, and the way he made her feel safe in a world that often seemed chaotic. But as the years passed, small cracks began appearing in what seemed like a flawless facade. It started subtly. Daniel began coming home late from work. At first, Emma thought it was just the demands of his career. When she mentioned it, he would smile apologetically. "Work's a nightmare right now," he'd say. "You know how it is when projects pile up." Emma would nod, trying to be understanding, and reassure him it was okay. She wanted to trust him, and she did, at least she wanted to. Then came the secrecy. Daniel began guarding his phone more carefully. Where he once left it casually on the kitchen counter, it was now always in his pocket, screen face down. When a message arrived, he would glance quickly and step outside or into another room. If Emma asked who it was, he would simply say, "Work." A gnawing unease began to grow inside her. But every time she considered confronting him, she pushed the thought away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was overthinking. But that Thursday evening changed everything. Her phone buzzed while she was arranging some sketches at her desk. A message from Daniel popped up. "Daniel. Hey, I'm going to have to stay at the office tonight. Big deadline tomorrow." Something about it felt off. Emma couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the casual tone that didn't fit his usual urgency. Maybe it was the timing. She felt a knot in her stomach she hadn't felt before. She quickly typed back. "Emma. Okay, do you want me to bring you dinner later?" Daniel. "No need. I'll probably be here all night." Emma set the phone down. The sudden wave of doubt was suffocating. She tried to focus on her work, but the thought lingered like smoke in a closed room. Then she made a decision she never thought she would. She would check on him. Not to accuse, not to spy, but to see for herself. She grabbed her car keys and ordered Daniel's favorite pasta from a nearby Italian restaurant. Maybe, she thought, she could surprise him with dinner. Maybe it would make him smile. 20 minutes later, Emma arrived at the towering office building. But something was immediately wrong. The lights inside were dim, and the lobby was mostly empty. The receptionist gave her a polite nod as she approached. "My husband, Daniel Carter, works here. I brought him dinner," Emma said. The receptionist frowned, typing something on the computer. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. Carter left hours ago." Emma blinked. "What, hours ago?" The receptionist checked again. "Yes, he signed out at 4:12 p.m. Emma's mind raced. How could that be? Daniel had said he'd be staying late for a project. She thanked the receptionist politely and walked back to her car, her pulse quickening. As she drove back toward home, her mind refused to stop spinning. There could be many explanations. Maybe he had finished early. Maybe a client had called him somewhere else. Then she saw it. A cozy little restaurant tucked on a quiet street. And through the window, Daniel, sitting across from a woman Emma had never seen before. She was beautiful, long dark hair, elegant dress. And Daniel, her husband, was laughing, leaning forward, holding her hand like she was the only person in the world. Emma felt the air leave her lungs. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, and fought the urge to scream. But instead, she did something she hadn't expected. She quietly took out her phone and snapped several photos, capturing every moment, the laughter, the intimacy, the hand-holding, the closeness. She didn't confront him. Not yet. That night, she went home silently, her mind racing with plans, strategies, and questions. Daniel had no idea she already knew. And Emma realized something crucial: anger, though natural, wouldn't help her. She needed a plan. A plan that would expose him, humiliate him, and make him regret ever underestimating her. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every memory of their marriage now carried a bitter aftertaste. Every smile, every touch, every word Daniel had said, Emma now wondered which were real and which were lies. The first step, she decided, was to gather proof. Photographs were good, but she needed more. Conversations, secret meetings, maybe even recordings. If she could prove his betrayal beyond doubt, Daniel's carefully constructed double life would crumble. By morning, Emma was no longer the woman who had left for dinner with excitement in her eyes. She was something else: a strategist, a detective, a woman scorned but not broken. And Daniel, blissfully unaware, was about to learn that the game had changed. The morning sun streamed through the living room window, but Emma barely noticed it. Sleep had eluded her, not because of exhaustion, but because her mind was in overdrive. Every scene she had seen the night before, the laughter, the hand-holding, the intimate whispers, replayed in her mind like a cruel movie she couldn't pause. She made herself a cup of coffee, but it tasted bitter, even with sugar. Her hand trembled as she held it. For months, she had pushed aside that nagging feeling, convincing herself she was imagining things. But now the truth was undeniable. Daniel had been lying. Emma set the cup down and took a deep breath. She had to plan. Rage alone would not help her. She needed strategy. She needed evidence. And most importantly, she needed control. The first step was surveillance. She couldn't just wait for another late work night and hope to catch him in the act. Emma opened her laptop and began researching. Security cameras outside restaurants, tracking apps, even social media posts. Anything that could give her insight into Daniel's secret life. She wasn't the type to act impulsively. This had to be methodical. By noon, she had a list. Checked the social media profiles of the woman from the restaurant. Tracked Daniel's movements using his work phone. He often forgot to hide it in meetings. Asked casual questions of his colleagues and friends, under the guise of curiosity. Keep photographing any suspicious behavior. Emma decided to start small. The woman from the restaurant. A quick search for recent posts on Facebook and Instagram yielded her name: Sophia Lane, a junior marketing executive at a boutique PR firm. Pictures on her profile showed dinners, parties, and weekend getaways, some with Daniel. Emma's stomach churned as she realized this wasn't a one-time meeting. She printed out the photos and arranged them neatly on the dining table. Each picture confirmed her growing suspicion. Daniel had a life she didn't know about. He wasn't just staying late for work pressure. He was building a parallel life, one that excluded her entirely. The next step was harder. She needed proof that would stand up if confronted openly: texts, calls, receipts. But Daniel was careful. He deleted messages, hid notifications, and always made excuses. Emma had to outsmart him. Over the next few days, she began subtle surveillance. She followed him once after work, keeping her distance. Daniel went to the same small cafe she had seen before, where Sophia waited. They greeted each other with smiles that Emma had never seen directed at her. They left together, their hands intertwined, disappearing into the night. Emma returned home, heart pounding. She had proof now, and she needed more. She began logging every movement, every suspicious pattern. She learned his schedule, his late nights, and even small details, like which cafe he preferred on Tuesdays, which streets he took to avoid familiar faces. But as Emma immersed herself in the investigation, she realized something else. Daniel hadn't just betrayed her with Sophia. He had changed subtly over the past months, emotionally. His jokes felt hollow, his compliments forced, and his smiles seemed rehearsed. It was as if every affectionate gesture she remembered had been part of a performance. The next step was confrontation. But Emma knew she couldn't do it recklessly. A public scene would alert him, and he would cover his tracks faster. She needed a moment where he felt safe, confident, and unaware. That's when she decided on a risky move. She would attend one of his work events. It was a gala, supposedly to celebrate a big project Daniel had led. Emma had never been to his office events before, but this one was crucial. She registered under the pretext of wife support, a gesture she had given him often. But in reality, she would watch him, document interactions, and find the perfect time to strike. Meanwhile, Daniel remained oblivious. He came home that night, tired, smiling faintly as if he had no idea Emma knew. She greeted him warmly, masking the storm inside her. "Long day?" she asked. "Yes," he replied, collapsing into the couch. "The project is finally on track." Emma nodded, hiding her thoughts. She didn't ask more questions. Silence was better. Daniel thought she trusted him, but in reality, he had no idea how close she was to unraveling everything. Over the next week, Emma's focus narrowed. She spent hours researching, photographing, and preparing. She found more receipts, subtle hints, and even occasional social media check-ins that Daniel and Sophia left inadvertently. Each piece of evidence added to the mosaic of betrayal. By the end of the week, Emma had a plan forming, not just to confront him, but to expose him fully. She didn't just want an apology. She wanted him to feel the weight of every lie he had told, every secret he had kept, and every day he had spent building a life without her. Emma realized that anger alone wasn't enough. She needed precision, timing, and patience. She would wait for the right moment when Daniel's arrogance and overconfidence made him vulnerable. And deep down, Emma understood that once she struck, nothing would be the same. Daniel's perfect double life, the one he thought was hidden, was about to collapse spectacularly. Emma had always believed that patience was a virtue. Never had she imagined she would wield it like a weapon. After a week of meticulous observation, she felt the full extent of Daniel's betrayal coursing through her mind like fire. Each photo, each receipt, each social media post confirmed one inescapable truth. He had been living a secret life, one filled with lies and intimacy that didn't include her. But anger alone wouldn't suffice. If Emma wanted true justice, she needed proof that would hit Daniel where it hurt most: his pride, his carefully maintained image, and his sense of control. She decided to start subtly, blending in, observing, and waiting for a perfect opportunity. The gala Daniel had mentioned earlier seemed ideal. It was a celebration of a big client project, and Daniel would be surrounded by colleagues and peers. Emma could use the setting to her advantage, to expose him in a controlled, precise manner. For the next few days, Emma prepared. She dressed in her most elegant attire, one that would catch attention without arousing suspicion. She practiced her demeanor in the mirror, calm, confident, composed. Anger could be revealed later. For now, she needed to appear supportive. The night of the gala arrived. Emma arrived first, claiming she wanted to help Daniel set up. His colleagues greeted her warmly, none suspecting her true intentions. Emma kept her eyes on him the moment he walked in. Daniel looked sharp in his suit, charming as ever, and completely unaware that Emma knew about Sophia. And then she saw her. Sophia Lane. She was at the far end of the room, laughing with another man, occasionally glancing at Daniel with that same intimate smile Emma had witnessed at the restaurant. Emma's jaw tightened. Emma spent the evening weaving herself through conversations, observing Daniel's interactions. She noticed the subtle glances, the small touches, the laughter that seemed to belong to someone else. She discreetly took notes, photographed small interactions from a distance, and recorded snippets of conversations when possible. Each piece added to the growing mosaic of Daniel's duplicity. But Emma wanted more than observation. She wanted confrontation, calculated, undeniable, and public. She decided to set a trap. The following week, she orchestrated a chance encounter. Using the information she had gathered, Emma called a few contacts under the guise of a friendly dinner invitation, then subtly ensured that Daniel and Sophia would both attend. It wasn't direct confrontation, at least, not yet, but it was a start. That evening, she arrived early at the restaurant. Emma felt a strange mixture of anticipation and cold determination. Daniel would arrive, and Sophia too, completely unaware that Emma was there not as a bystander, but as a predator. Daniel walked in first, smiling as if he owned the world. Emma's heart ached, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the plan. She waved at him politely, masking every ounce of suspicion. He smiled back, completely oblivious, before moving toward a table. Moments later, Sophia arrived. Her entrance was graceful, full of confidence. She didn't notice Emma at first, and Emma allowed herself a small, quiet smile. The trap was in place. Emma ordered a drink, pretending to scroll through her phone. She timed everything carefully, knowing that patience was essential. She could wait. Daniel and Sophia were unaware of the storm quietly building around them. Over the next hour, Emma quietly recorded their interactions. Text messages, subtle touches, whispered conversations. She captured every detail, ensuring that she had evidence that would be impossible to deny. Finally, Emma decided it was time to escalate. She placed a call to Daniel, asking him to step outside for a moment under a pretense. The moment he left the table, she sent a discreet message to a few key people she knew, mutual friends, colleagues, and family members, alerting them to come witness a private intervention. Daniel returned to the table, looking puzzled. Before he could speak, Emma approached, calm and collected. Her voice was low, measured, but carried an undeniable edge. "Daniel, we need to talk," she said, her eyes locking with his. He smiled nervously. "About what?" Emma didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tapped her phone, sending a live stream to a small group waiting nearby. The realization hit Daniel instantly. He had been caught. And it wasn't just by her. Everyone who mattered would soon know. Sophia's eyes widened. Panic flashed across her face. Emma remained composed, almost serene, as she revealed the photographs, text messages, and receipts she had meticulously collected over the past weeks. Every lie, every secret, every late-night excuse now had tangible evidence. Daniel stammered, trying to explain, to deny, to charm his way out. But Emma's calm intensity made it impossible. She wasn't just angry. She was in control. By the end of the evening, Daniel and Sophia were exposed. The gala, once a celebration of Daniel's professional success, had become a stage for his personal failure. Emma had not raised her voice, had not thrown a scene. But she had dismantled his double life with precision, leaving him no room to maneuver. As Emma left the restaurant that night, she felt a strange sense of liberation. Daniel's betrayal had hurt deeply, but her resolve, patience, and strategic thinking had turned the tables. She was no longer a victim. She was a force to be reckoned with. And she knew this was only the beginning. The morning after the gala, Emma awoke to a quiet house that suddenly felt unfamiliar. The silence wasn't comforting. It was loaded, heavy with tension, as if the walls themselves were aware of the storm she had unleashed the night before. Daniel had returned home late, after the gala, avoiding her gaze completely. Sophia, of course, was nowhere to be seen. Emma made coffee, her hands steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. She reflected on how far she had come in just a few weeks, from suspicion to observation to methodical planning and finally to confrontation. Each step had been deliberate, controlled. And now, the consequences were unfolding exactly as she had anticipated. She didn't need to wait long for Daniel to speak. He emerged from the bedroom, suit rumpled, hair slightly disheveled, and a guilty look etched across his face. His charm, which had once been effortless, now seemed weak and strained. "Emma," he started, but she didn't let him continue. She met his gaze with unwavering calm, a coolness that made her even more terrifying in that moment. "Daniel, I hope you understand that last night changed everything." Daniel swallowed hard, avoiding eye contact. I can't explain." Emma held up her hand. "No, I don't want explanations. I want honesty. You've been living a lie, Daniel. And last night, everyone saw it. Not just me, friends, family, colleagues, everyone." He froze. His arrogance, the same arrogance that had made him think he could hide everything, faltered for the first time. He stammered. I made a mistake. It didn't mean. It meant enough for you to betray me, Daniel," Emma interrupted. "You lied, cheated, and thought I wouldn't notice. But I did. And I've documented everything." She gestured toward the folder of evidence she had meticulously compiled. Photos, receipts, social media screenshots, text messages, and recordings. Daniel's face turned pale. For the first time, he realized that his careful web of lies had been dismantled. He had underestimated Emma, her patience, her intelligence, and her ability to plan. "You think you've won?" he asked weakly. "It wasn't like you think." Emma stepped closer, her voice steady, icy. "I don't think, Daniel. I know. And now you will face the consequences. I'm not just taking back control, I'm reclaiming my life." For hours that day, Emma confronted him, not violently, not with screams, but strategically. She called family members, close friends, and even Daniel's colleagues to witness the truth. Each call, each revelation was precise, leaving him no room for manipulation or charm. Sophia, too, became part of the fallout. Emma reached out to people who had mutual connections, quietly exposing her role in the betrayal. Sophia, confident and unbothered just days ago, was now scrambling to explain herself, her reputation tarnished in ways she had never anticipated. Daniel tried to salvage what remained, but it was too late. His double life had collapsed. His lies were public, undeniable. And Emma, calm yet resolute, stood at the center of it all, not as a victim, but as the orchestrator of justice. Over the next few weeks, the effects rippled through their social circles. Colleagues whispered in hallways, friends asked cautious questions, and family members expressed shock and disbelief. Daniel was forced to confront not only his betrayal but the reality that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Emma, meanwhile, began reconstructing her life around this new reality. She focused on herself, her career, and her personal growth. She realized that while Daniel had underestimated her, she had underestimated her own strength. For the first time in months, she felt free. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also illuminated a path forward, a path where she was in control, confident, and independent. By the end of this period, Daniel had no illusions left. He was exposed, humiliated, and acutely aware of the consequences of his actions. And Emma? She was stronger than ever, her resolve hardened, her confidence unshakable. She had turned heartbreak into power, betrayal into clarity, and deceit into revelation. And deep down, she knew that Daniel would never underestimate her again. The weeks following the gala were both strange and liberating. The once familiar walls of Emma's home now felt different, almost charged with energy. Daniel's presence, previously comforting and familiar, had become a reminder of deceit. Yet, instead of despair, Emma felt clarity. She had navigated the betrayal, exposed the lies, and regained control over her life. Daniel had tried in vain to apologize, to explain, to beg for forgiveness. Emma listened to none of it. His words were empty, his charm ineffective. Each plea reminded her of the countless lies, the secret nights, the false assurances. She realized something crucial. Forgiveness could not erase deceit, and trust, once broken, could not be reconstructed by hollow promises. Sophia, too, had faded from the edges of Emma's life. Mutual friends now avoided her, aware of her role in the betrayal. Emma didn't gloat, didn't celebrate publicly. She knew humiliation was secondary. Her victory lay in her composure, her intelligence, and her ability to rise above. Emma began focusing on herself. She redesigned her work schedule, taking on more creative projects. She enrolled in a photography course, something she had always postponed, and started exercising regularly, not just for her appearance, but to reclaim her physical and mental energy. Evenings, once dominated by worry and betrayal, were now her own. She cooked meals she loved, read books she had shelved long ago, and took long walks in the park, feeling the sun and the breeze as if for the first time in months. She learned to enjoy her own company, to find joy in independence. One afternoon, she met with a close friend for coffee. Her friend asked cautiously, "Emma, how are you really?" Emma smiled, a calm, assured smile. "I'm better than I ever thought I could be. I've learned that some betrayals reveal your true strength, and I've found mine." It wasn't just about Daniel or Sophia anymore. It was about Emma reclaiming her life. Every laugh, every smile, every quiet moment alone was now hers, not borrowed from a husband who had betrayed her, not stolen by a friend who had deceived her, but fully, entirely hers. When Daniel eventually moved out, Emma felt no sadness, only relief. The house, once heavy with secrecy and lies, now felt lighter. She had proven to herself that she didn't need a partner to define her worth. She had her intelligence, her creativity, and her resilience, and that was more than enough. Months later, Emma received a polite, distant message from Daniel, asking for some form of reconciliation. She didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She had no desire to re-enter a life tainted with lies. Her focus was forward, not backward. Emma had grown in ways she hadn't imagined possible. The betrayal, once a devastating wound, had become a catalyst for transformation. She had learned to trust herself, to act decisively, and to face adversity with calm strategy. The pain had forged strength, and the heartbreak had birthed independence. One evening, sitting on her balcony with a cup of tea, Emma reflected on the journey. The memories of Daniel and Sophia no longer triggered anger, they were lessons. She was no longer the woman who had silently endured lies. She was a strategist, a survivor, and a woman who understood her own power. And in that quiet, reflective moment, she smiled, not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but out of fulfillment. Her life was hers again, and she would never allow anyone to take that away. Emma knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but she was ready. She had faced betrayal, exposed it, and emerged stronger. The lessons were clear, the victory complete. She had rewritten her story, not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to be underestimated. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Emma finally felt whole. Her past no longer held her hostage. Her present was hers to command. And her future, brilliant, independent, and unapologetically her own, awaited.